Hey guys, Lori here with Sew at Peace. If you are new to my channel, I make handmade sewn items such as tote bags, zipper pouches, book sleeves, e-reader sleeves, bookmarks, hanging menstrual feminine storage bags. There's a variety of things that I make. In today's video, I'm going to be making my sew side sack. So this one, I made it in a short with my scraps. So it just holds all of my clips and things that I need right next to my sewing machine. So I have like a loop turner, a pen, my little sewing gauge, a pencil, my seam ripper, my sewing guide. So lots of things in here. I did find that it is a little too large inside. I'm going to make one a little bit smaller, and I'm also going to use fusible fleece. So I'm going to use Pellon fusible fleece. So in this sew side sack, I used interfacing. So it was a medium weight interfacing. And today I'm going to try the fusible fleece and see if it comes out a little bit sturdier. Can I just tell you guys about a little pet peeve that I have? So when I hear people say that something calls for Pellon, I have no idea what they're talking about. So Pellon is a brand. Pellon makes interfacing, they make stabilizer, they make fusible fleece. I believe they make batting as well and various other products. So they're a large company, large manufacturer. They make tons of things. So if you're watching and you say Pellon, it would be helpful if we would clarify that, because I know a lot of people don't know. Like, it's hard to tell when you're looking on the screen what somebody's using because you can't see the thickness of something. And it's just helpful for people that are trying to learn how to create what you're creating. So with that said, let me get my fusible fleece so I can show you exactly which one I use. Okay, so I'm not saying that you should give away all of your trade secrets, but if something calls for interfacing, then just be specific. Or if it needs fusible fleece, don't just say Pellon, because that's very confusing for us as the viewers. Okay, so the fusible fleece that I use in my products, when I say something has fusible fleece, it should always be this product unless for some reason I can't get it. I haven't run into that issue yet. So this one is Pellon Fusible Thermolam Plus, which is a fusible fleece. It's a little bit thicker. So it's TP971F. Okay, so in this video, I'm actually going to be making my sew side sack, plus I'm going to try a different method to make a little basket. So we will do both ways. And this sew side sack, it was 15 inches by 14 inches. So I think the one that we're going to make today, I'm just going to do 10 inches by 10 inches. And I'm going to do this fabric that I love by Tulip Pink. It just has like little safety pins on it. So I'm going to do this fabric for the inner and the outer layer because I love it so much and I want to see it on both sides. So we're going to do the same for the other experimental basket as well. Okay, so I'm just going to get these cut. Okay, let's see how wide this is. This is about 24 inches. So actually, let's see how wide that is. Okay, we might be able to make this work. So I'm gonna cut off the selvage. You know what? We're gonna work with the top side of this. And I just have my fabric folded in half, so it'll be easier to cut it. So we're gonna do 22 and the 12-inch mark. Doesn't really matter as long as it's 10 inches, but that is going to be helpful for me. Okay, we're cutting off the selvage on that end. We're just going to use the same markings for our 10 by 10 square. Okay, so this is going to be for the sew side sack. And then for the other bin, what should we do? I think we're going to do the same measurements. We're going to do 10 by 10, but it's going to be cut out a little bit different. Or should we do, yeah, let's do 10 by 10. Okay. So we have our 2 pieces for our bins, and I'm gonna cut this fusible fleece. So this one, I normally do, you can do like 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch shorter than whatever you're doing. So since we're doing 10 by 10 blocks, we're gonna chop the 1/2 inch mark. So 9.5 by 9.5. So the fusible fleece is very thick. Well, not very thick, but it's a lot thicker than your standard interfacing. So we got our 9.5 inch block. Let me grab my interfacing. Okay, this is a medium weight interfacing. I don't know what brand this is. This is from Amazon. Okay, and please tell me if I'm not the only one that gets bothered when somebody says Pellon. Maybe I'm just being critical, but sometimes I really want to know what people are using, and I can't get that information when they just say Pellon. Okay, I'm gonna go take these over to the iron and fuse these on, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I went ahead and pressed my interfacing on here. So this is the second basket that we're going to be making. So this one has the interfacing on it. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a margin here on the side. So that just helps to reduce the bulk. And I ended up cutting another piece of interfacing for the one that we're doing the interfacing on. Originally, I was just going to do it on one, but I decided let's do it on 2 and see how sturdy that makes that. So we'll put that one aside, and then I have this one, the one I put the fusible fleece on. So there's a bit of a margin there. And the other one, there is nothing. So that's just our plain piece of fabric. And I forgot about our straps, our little handles. So I really like having the handles on our sew side sack because I usually go from my cutting table over to my sewing desk. Now everything's on the same side, but I still need to move it from side to side. So these handles are amazing, and I don't want a basket without handles. So that is what we're going to be doing. So this is a scrap piece of fabric that I had left over from my cuts. So we're just going to use this for handles for one of our bags. So it's about 2.5 inches by 10 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this for one. We'll just cut it in half. Once it's sewn together, I'll show you guys that in a little bit. And then this guy, we'll cut another piece out for that, for the second bag. So this is about 10 inches, so that should be perfect. So let's go ahead and cut some straps from this piece. Okay, that's 2.5 inches wide. Let's see if we're at 10 inches. So yeah, we're about 10.25 here, which is fine. We'll just use this set for one of our bags. So with this, to make our handles, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your piece of fabric that we just cut, you're gonna fold it in half, then you're gonna iron this flat, then you're gonna open it up, you're gonna see your crease line here, and you're gonna take one side, fold it into the middle, iron this down, then you're gonna take your other half, fold it towards the center, you're gonna iron this flat, and then you're gonna turn it in one more time so none of our edges are shown, and it's gonna look like this. It's gonna look just like this when we're done. And then we'll clip it together, and then we'll sew on our sewing machine. We'll sew this closed, and then we'll cut it in half. So I'm gonna go iron my straps down, and I'll be right back. All right, guys. So I have ironed these straps, so we'll get them sewn in just a minute. And we're gonna take our piece with the fusible fleece and our other piece that has no lining. I didn't cut those exactly square. And I think the reason it came out a little wonky is because the fabric was wet. So I sprayed it a little too much with my spray bottle. Oh well. Okay, so on the one with the fusible fleece, we're gonna mark out our corners. So we're gonna find something round. I have painter's tape and I like the rounded corners on my sew side sack. You can leave them at an angle if you want, but this is just how I like mine. So we don't have to make everything perfect, especially for something that we're keeping for ourselves. Unless you are a perfectionist, then by all means, make sure you got everything perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna clip these together. So remember, they are right sides together, so pretty sides touching. We're gonna sew our straps and then I'll show you how we insert these into your bag. Okay, I'm just gonna sew my straps and I changed my thread to this bright pink or hot pink color. It's called Flamingo. It's a glide thread. I really like glide. Okay, so I'm just gonna sew this closed. I'm gonna use a number 3 stitch length. There's one, I'm just gonna leave this one aside for now, and I'm gonna do my other one as well. Okay, so here's one strap. I'm gonna cut in half. So I just folded it in half and we're gonna cut. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the other straps. You can top stitch on both sides of the straps if you want. I'm just gonna do the one side. So I'm gonna make sure that these stay together like this, and we're gonna take our piece that we just sewed, and then we're gonna mark the center. Just gonna move that clip over a little bit. So I just fold it in half, make a line in the middle. Then we're gonna do the same thing on this other side. Okay, we got a line there. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take my straps and put it between the 2 layers of the fabric. So I'm just keeping it flat and then turn it. Okay. And I just leave it poking out a little bit just so I can make sure that it grabs when I sew it. And this part does not have to be perfect. It's about a centimeter away from the other one. So I'm just going to repeat that same process on this other side. And you want to make sure that the straps are inside and not outside of the project because they'll be incorrect when you go to flip the project. All right, so we are all ready to sew this. So we're going to leave a gap in here. Let me get my marker. So we're going to leave a gap so we can flip it. So you can mark it with a marker if you want, or you can mark it with some clips. So I'm going to change my stitch length to a 2. And you'll just turn around those corners. You can go slow if you want. And I just backstitch over the straps. You don't have to do that. I just like to do that to reinforce those straps. Okay, and then we're just gonna backstitch right by our marking for the hole. And then we're just gonna leave this little overhang on here. Not that we need much support, but I like to leave it that way it gets top stitched and it reinforces the straps. Okay, so we're just flipping this right side out. We want to make sure our little straps are hanging on. Make sure those got sewn in there properly. Okay, we're just poking out our corners. I like to iron it down once I flip it, but we're going to iron it down and we're going to just poke these raw edges in there and iron that flat. That way it'll lay nicely when we go and top stitch. I'll be right back. All right, so we have ironed our hole closed. So we folded the seams in, and we're just gonna go top stitch around the entire perimeter, and we're gonna do about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm gonna top stitch with a 3-inch length. So we have top stitched the entire perimeter and our hole is closed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mark 3 inches. I think I'm gonna do 3. Where is my marker? I'm just using this. Let me see if you guys can see this. Okay, so if you're using a ruler, you'll just make sure your 3-inch line matches up with the side and it matches up with the bottom as well. So your corner is not going to reach all the way to the corner mark on the ruler if you curved it out like I did. Okay, so we're just going to mark on all 4 corners. So now we have all of our markings, and it's probably going to dry up quickly, but so you're going to see your line on each side. So just take a look at it, make sure the ends are somewhat lined up, and then you'll clip this. Actually, we can do one at a time. So we will start with this one. I'm going to switch my stitch length to a 2, then always back stitch. Okay, there's one corner. And then we'll repeat the process on the other 3 corners. Okay, so side sack is done. So this is what it looks like. So we just sewed all the sides, and we have these nice little rounded edges. So you can take this over to the sewing machine, or not the sewing machine, but to the iron, and flatten them out and give it a press so it looks like this. It looks like a cone, like an ice cream cone. So you can do that with all the corners. And then what I like to do is, well, I don't know if we can do it with this basket because it's so small. In my other video, I put some stitches in the middle here on both sides. I don't know if you can see that, but I put stitches on both sides just to allow it to sit a little bit flatter, but this is so small. It might be a struggle to get it inside your presser foot, but depending on the size that you do, you might be able to get it in there. So you can leave it like this with the corners out, or these little pieces out, or you can flip it the other way and have the little flaps inside your box. So I think it's just a preference thing. So that's what it looks like with the flaps inside. Super cute. I really like the way that this feels with the fusible fleece. I think my other one may have been a little bit sturdier if I had used fusible fleece. So we'll see how my other box comes out. It could just be the style, but on this one, when you go and put your tools in here, it just kind of flops down. So I think that could have been prevented if I used fusible fleece, but I thought that the medium weight interfacing was going to be sufficient. So I'm going to take this over to the iron and just iron these flat like I showed you, but on the outside. So I'll be right back. All right, here she is, all done and pretty. I just love this fabric, is so pretty. I love green and pink. So I think it turned out super cute. I can use it for my larger clips. One thing I didn't like about this one too is I mixed in my large clips with my small clips. So this is perfect. I love having a little separate bin that I can store the larger ones in. Okay, let's go to the other bag. All right, guys, we are working on the pieces with the interfacing. So we're going to put right sides together, and we're just going to draw our squares on here. So let's do the same measurements that we did on the other box. So we're going to do 3 inches on each corner. I got to keep checking if my mic is on because I had a couple of videos where my mic just turned off and my voiceover looks ridiculous because my mouth movements don't match my audio. Okay, so we're just gonna cut these all out. All right, and you should actually clip these down so your fabric doesn't move. I think mine just moved slightly, but it's okay. Okay, we're just gonna unclip that, and we're gonna treat these pieces separately. So we're gonna turn this in. So if you see this X, we're gonna turn it in so that way it looks like this, kind of like a U or an L, and then we'll just clip that together, and then we'll do the other side. Just going to clip it there. So we're going to sew along this line and this line. Okay, so we're going to sew along this edge, and I'm just going to sew at 1/4 inch. And same thing on this other end. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with this other one that we clipped together. It'll be either your inner or your lining or your outer, depending on what you're doing, but mine are going to be the same, so I'm not really concerned about the direction of things. We have these pieces, so we're going to now fold it the other direction and do the same thing. So we're going to line up those edges, clip, and then we're going to line up these edges and clip. Then we're going to take this other part, either your lining or your main, and do the same thing. Clip, and you can clip this other side as well. But I'm not going to clip mine since I'm going to sew it right now. Okay, we're taking our other piece. Okay, so both of our pieces should look like this. And I'm going to do this a little bit different than I did the last one to add my straps. So I could have shown you an easier way. Where did my marker go? I lost my marker. Okay, let's try this pink one. So I'm just going to find the midpoint of one of these top pieces here. So we're going to mark with our marker, and then complete opposite of the one that you chose. We're going to do the same thing. So just find the midpoint up there. So I have lines marked in the middle on opposite sides. So we're just going to do a basting stitch in here. So this one just makes things a little bit easier, so you're not trying to make sure that everything gets caught in your seams. So same thing, we're going to make sure this is all going the same direction. It's going to look a little weird, and then just put it as close or far away as you want with a little bit of overhang. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on this other side. Okay, and then fold over your other strap, baste that in there. So now we have both of our little straps, and we're gonna flip this one right side out, and then we're gonna tuck this inside of our wrong side out piece. And then you're gonna make sure that your seams match up, so seam to seam on all 4 corners. Okay, so we have it all clipped together, and I'm just going to mark an area on here where I want to make sure I leave an opening. So when we stitch around the whole thing, we're going to leave an opening. Choose a side that doesn't have your straps. So we're going to put it on this side, and I'm just leaving mine about 2 inches wide. All right, this might get a little tricky because it's such a small little project. So just take your time if you need to take your time. And I'm just laying my seams down. I'm not opening them. So this is pretty thin. It shouldn't affect your project. We've got our stitches along the entire top, minus this little 2-inch gap. And we're just gonna flip the project right side out. We're just pushing everything through that little hole. Whew, it's kind of hard. All right, so I'm just poking my corners out, and then you'll put your lining piece inside your outer, which mine doesn't really matter. I just chose a side, and then you'll just kind of flatten everything out. So you have a nice rim. You can pin it if you want. I'm gonna pin it just because I'm having to like roll it a little bit to get it to lay right. Hi guys, I am back. So I am sorry did not film the top stitching of this bag. So my phone ran out of storage space. I had to upload the video to my SD card or SSD card. The only thing I did after I flipped the project right side out is I top stitch along the entire perimeter. So I just closed that opening that we had left in there. And here is the final product. So I just put my smaller clips in there and I am really loving this one. It is super cute. It's perfect size for clips. So I have my small clips in here and then I have my oversized clips in this larger one. So there's the bigger ones and I like to have them separated. But as far as which interfacing or batting that I prefer, I find that they're both similar in like dimension and width and structure. So this one is the one that we made with fusible fleece, and then this is the one we made with the interfacing, medium weight interfacing. So if I had to choose, or if I had to make this one again, I'd probably use the fusible fleece just for the fact that it adheres better to the fabric. And it could be that the interfacing that I have is not very good quality. I bought it from Amazon and it's not the Palin brand. So maybe if I bought the Palin brand, that would be a little bit better. But I just don't like the way that it adheres to the fabric. It leaves a lot of wrinkles. And I even attach the interfacing with my Cricut press. So I think it's like 9x9. It's a bigger perimeter. And it still didn't look that great. So not a fan of that interfacing. But the Palon, like I said, it is a little bit squishier, but when you look at it just with the naked eye, it's almost, like I said, the same thickness of the project. So I'm really happy with the way both of these turned out. Like I said, this one can be flipped the other way so that these little, I don't even know what to call them, just like little attachments. So you can have them on the inside or the outside. In the little version, these on the outside is perfect. Like I have no complaints. The other one that I made, it is a lot more floppier, but I only put one layer of interfacing. So I think that's where I messed up, is only putting the one layer. So if I put two, it might have been a little bit better, but I had designed this one to fit larger things like the pencils and the markers and the pointer things, seam pointers. So if you make one a larger size, I definitely want to know how it goes and let me know if it has better structure. Like I said, I would try the fusible fleece or I would try 2 layers of medium weight interfacing. So interfacing on each inner and outer fabric, but this one is perfect. Like I said, the one with the interfacing, I have zero complaints. I really like the size of this one. And then the other sew side sack that I made with the fusible fleece, I just put small things in here. So I put my little hump jumper, I put this little thread catcher. I don't really know what it's called, but it goes around your spool of thread to keep the thread from getting wild. And then I have these little bobbin things. So they go on top of your thread so you can attach your bobbin to your spool. And then it fits my little snippers. So if you want a little sew side sack just to fit the basic things like this and not so much a marker or pencil, this size is perfect. And again, it was just 10 inches by 10 inches with the 3-inch boxed corners. I am really happy with the way both of these projects turned out, and definitely do not skip the handles. So I know I kept calling them straps because I'm used to making tote bags. They're not straps. Maybe they are straps, but they should really be called handles. So I know everybody has different lingo or terminology for things. Like I said, with the whole Palon conversation, I don't even know if I say Palon right. Palon, Palon, Palin, I don't know. Anyways, that concludes my video, and if you enjoyed it, I hope you give it a like and subscribe, and I hope you have a joyful and peaceful day.